Buonasera e benvenuti all'Istituto Nazionale Tostiano. Per questo ultimo incontro faremo un salto di 10.000 km e andremo a Singapore, nella sede della School of the Arts. Questo è un istituto nel quale gli studenti iniziano un percorso di formazione che parte dalla scuola primaria per arrivare alle superiori, nel quale praticano lo studio delle arti nelle molteplici forme espressive e quindi anche della musica. Gli studenti delle superiori ci hanno proposto un progetto pluriennale incentrato su Francesco Paolo Tosti. Quello che vi proponiamo stasera è il primo di questi appuntamenti. Questi nostri giovani amici ci presenteranno un documentario nel quale ripercorrono il periodo travolgente della Belle Époque. Nella prima metà del cortometraggio ci parleranno dei più importanti compositori dell'epoca, mentre la seconda parte è dedicata interamente al nostro Francesco Paolo Tosti. Nel documentario, oltre il racconto, ci faranno ascoltare alcuni dei brani più rappresentativi del periodo, con una visione musicale entusiasta e fresca propria della loro giovane età. Il documentario è in lingua inglese, ma di agevole comprensione perché è ricco di immagini e documenti. Buona visione.
Hey Chloe, I was passing by the cinema the other day and I saw that they have released a movie called La Belle Époque. Do you know what that's all about?
Do you mean Belle Époque?
Oh yeah. It sounds really cool, but what does Belle Époque mean?
Well, Belle Époque means beautiful age in French. It refers to a period in France's history starting from the end of the Franco-Prussian War in 1871 to the beginning of World War I in 1914, when the Second Industrial Revolution took place.
Oh yeah, I recall learning that in history class. It's connected to the fin du siècle, which translates to end of the century. In Italy, the creative and artistic transalpine trends had an external influence which was then picked up by music. Hey, do you happen to know any of them?
Yes, one of them was Francesco Paolo Tosti. He was a popular composer of salon music, and he's still regarded as the main musical voice of the Italian Belle Époque. The Istituto Nazionale Tostiano actively preserves his heritage and promotes it in Italy and all over the world.
But what makes the Belle Époque so special?
Optimism, economic prosperity, and technological advancements were some of the characteristics of this period.
But did you know that underneath these developments lay tensions caused by nationalism, colonialism, and a series of alliances between European nations?
Oh, I didn't know.
With that, let's explore the history of the Belle Époque.
The Second Industrial Revolution was characterized by its multitude of inventions. The invention of the automobile and railway networks allowed many to travel throughout the country and beyond. This also meant that great wealth was no longer necessary to experience luxuries and travel.
That sounds amazing. I can't imagine what life would be like without technology.
New inventions were also being patented to improve the convenience of people's lifestyles. For example, the quality and quantity of food and drinks improved, and there were new machinery and tools for agriculture.
The growth of public performance venues meant that entertainment was more accessible to the public. More leisure hours were also created by the industrial system, which gave the average middle-class worker more free time for leisure and entertainment.
Erin, you mentioned there were economic and technological developments. Were there any other socio-political changes during that era as well?
Yes, of course. From the mid-19th century, the first wave of feminism was spreading through the West with the emergence of large feminist organizations. The perception of the female as free, independent figures became more prominent, and the struggle for gender equality was more widely discussed.
On a more political note, trade union members were favouring anarchistic ideologies and encouraging others to strike against capitalism.
Despite economic
prosperity, not everyone was able to enjoy equal economic benefits. It widened the disparity between social classes and heightened class consciousness, and also incited interclass warfare. But what about the arts?
The changing attitudes during the fin du siècle in Paris gave rise to more unconventional artistic standards, such as the Impressionist movement.
I've heard of Impressionism in paintings, like in Monet, but what about Impressionism in music?
Impressionism in music is a late 19th and early 20th century movement which focused on mood and atmosphere. Some works were a commentary on the corruption of the bourgeoisie, and some artists questioned the enlightened ideas of reason and progress.
The Belle Époque was characterized by salon music, which is typically written for solo piano in the Romantic style. It is usually fairly short and focuses on virtuosic and expressive piano playing.
Wait, aren't salons where people go for a haircut?
No, actually, salons are venues where people gather together to listen to music. A familiar name among the many salon music composers is Johannes Brahms. Brahms was a German composer and pianist of the Romantic period who lived from 1833 to 1897. Throughout his lifetime, he wrote many instrumental works, choral compositions, and over 200 songs.
Brahms is best known as a traditionalist, yet simultaneously as an innovator. His music is heavily grounded in compositional techniques and forms from the Baroque to classical periods, such as counterpoint and developments. He always sought to honor these foundational techniques while also innovating new approaches to harmony and melody.
Brahms grew up in a rich musical environment. His father was a double bass player, and Brahms himself took early lessons in piano theory and composition. In 1853, he began touring as an accompanist and started making important contacts. Amongst these were Robert and Clara Schumann, both of whom made a lasting impact on his life and career.
In the same year, Brahms wrote the Piano Sonata No. 3 in F minor Opus 5, which was then published in the following year.
The fourth movement is an intermezzo, which is a movement between two pieces in a larger work, or a standalone character piece. It is given the title Rückblick, which translates to remembrance, and begins in B minor. Brahms was largely inspired by Beethoven and the classical style, so he infused the ominous four-note opening motif from Beethoven's Symphony No. 5 throughout the piece.
Hi, I'm Yao Wai. I'll be performing the intermezzo from Brahms Sonata No. 3. It is titled Remembrances, and I feel that Brahms is trying to remind us to remember Beethoven, as the Fate motif from his Fifth Symphony is recurring through this piece. I hope you enjoy.
Having possibly drawn inspiration from the music of Robert Schumann, Brahms' music is vigorous and intricate. He often combined different rhythms and was fond of using syncopation. His melodies often embodied characteristics of the German folk song, or Lied, particularly in his songs and slow instrumental movements.
Another prominent composer of the Belle Époque period is the French composer, organist, and conductor Camille Saint-Saëns.
Saint-Saëns lived from 1835 to 1921. His most famous works include The Carnival of the Animals, Danse Macabre, and The Organ Symphony.
He was a precocious composer and performer, debuting with a Mozart piano concerto at the age of 10. Entering the Paris Conservatory at 13, he quickly became a famous musician in every sense of the word. He also continued composing. Saint-Saëns later founded the Société Nationale de Musique, the National Society for Music, in 1871.
He was also the first renowned composer to write music for a movie, The Assassination of the Duke of Guise.
This marked the start of composers getting involved with cinema.
Saint-Saëns must have been a huge celebrity.
He was. However, his musical style actually fell out of vogue in the early 1920s due to the rise in popularity of younger composers such as Claude Debussy. This created a particular animosity between the two leading composers, Saint-Saëns and Debussy. Debussy was regarded as more of an impressionist in contrast to the traditionalist Saint-Saëns, which explained their tense relationship. Saint-Saëns' music is virtuosic and traditionally French, with its polished beauty and emphasis on form. His harmonies were colorful and unusual, while his melodies were accessible. Saint-Saëns was also an avid traveler who explored non-European music, such as Middle Eastern and Japanese traditional music.
Amidst his various professional activities, Saint-Saëns also promoted the music of younger French contemporaries. He taught many young composers, such as Gabriel Fauré.
Fauré was a French composer who lived from 1845 to 1924. At a mere age of 8 years old, Fauré published his first composition for piano. He had excellent musical abilities, excelling in the area of composition.
In 1896, Fauré was appointed professor of composition at the Paris Conservatory. In 1905, he became the director of the conservatory.
What an honor! Fauré had an extremely successful career and could be considered one of the most influential French composers. Sadly, in 1920, Fauré experienced health complications and deafness, and he eventually resigned.
That's a pity, but we still have his music to enjoy. Fauré's music is characterized by textural minimalism and diffused tonality. These aspects of his music were instrumental in linking the end of Romanticism with the beginnings of the modern era.
The Belle Époque was also famous for its large repertoire of songs such as romances and melodies. Romances are simple songs for both voice and instruments. Melodies are French art songs. Fauré composed many melodies. Here's one composed in 1861, titled Le Papillon et la Fleur, The Butterfly and the Flower.
I am Jodie and this is Bernice, and we're so glad to be able to perform Gabriel Fauré's Le Papillon et la Fleur to you.
We also really liked the light piano solo in the beginning and at the end because it really reminded us of the beautiful and graceful butterfly fluttering, which is also what the flower in the poem admired.
We really hope that you enjoy the piece. Thank you.
Vois comme un estação
of this piece were taken from a poem of the same title written by Victor Hugo. They illustrate a flower singing to the visiting butterfly. The flower communicates its wishes to be able to fly and roam free in order to visit the other flowers, instead of being tethered to the soil.
Another famous romantic composer of the Belle Époque period was the Norwegian composer Edvard Grieg, who lived from 1843 to 1907.
Grieg is considered as an important romantic composer, and he founded the Norwegian nationalistic school of music. Some of his most popular works are his incidental music to Peer Gynt, written in 1875, and the Suite Holberg, written in 1884.
In 1858, Grieg entered the Leipzig Conservatory. Grieg moved to Copenhagen for professional work in 1863, and there he met many contemporaries. Around 1865, Grieg also became one of the founders of the Copenhagen Concert Society, Euterpe, to promote the works of young Scandinavian composers.
Starting such an association must have been a huge responsibility. But how did his music become popular?
His music is very lyrical, as he was exposed to lots of Norwegian folk music in his childhood. Moreover, with his friend Rikard Nordraak, whom he met in Copenhagen, Grieg learned northern folk tunes in his adulthood. These melodies inspired his later composition, such as his Ballad for Piano, which was a set of variations on a folk theme. Do you know of any other piano works that he composed?
Yes, Grieg's Nocturno, or Nocturne, is considered one of his characteristic pieces for solo piano. This piece is from the collection Lyric Pieces. He composed this nocturne after regaining inspiration from a trip to the Jotunheimen Mountains in 1891.
My favorite section of this piece was the middle section, the più mosso section. It moves chromatically, but you also have to make sure that you play it while maintaining the delicate and rippling texture. Overall, learning this piece was a really exciting process, and I found it really enjoyable.
colorful extended chords create a mystical atmosphere. This characteristic later influenced succeeding French composers such as Debussy and Ravel.
Maurice Ravel was a French composer who lived from 1875 to 1937. At the age of 14, Ravel began taking courses at the prestigious Paris Conservatory, where he studied under Gabriel Fauré.
He later composed Jadot in 1901, also known as Fountains or Playing Water, which he dedicated to his teacher Fauré.
How sweet! Ravel's music is most known for his frequent use of rhythms and melodic phrases from Spanish music, and is often inspired by Debussy or musical impressionism.
In 1917, Ravel met a young contemporary French composer who was none other than Francis Poulenc, who lived from 1899 to 1963 in Paris. Poulenc was mostly self-taught, learning the piano under his mother and composing his first piece at 18 without having attended a single composition class. Furthermore, Poulenc later chose to pursue general studies instead of music as advised by his father.
In 1920, he formed Les Six, a group of 6 French composers who disliked the impressionistic and romantic influences in French music. They sought to create a more unique sound for France.
That's really cool. How did they find the sound?
Poulenc was musically influenced by Igor Stravinsky and Eric Satie, who were both prominent names in 20th century modernism. His first ballet, Les Biches, performed in 1924, and his opera, Les Dialogues des Carmélites, are some of his most famous works to date.
Poulenc's musical content is characteristically humorous, with many of his works being witty and parodic in nature. He composed songs ranging from comedies to tragic narratives and is also admired for intricately weaving the vocal melody with the accompaniment. La Reine de Coeur was one of Poulenc's vocal works composed in 1960.
Hi, my name is Nawal and I'll be performing La Reine de Coeur by Poulenc. This piece is mainly talking about death, and the emotions that I feel and want to share with everyone is, well, basically grief and despair. So as a performer, I feel it's very important to be able to comfort each other as well, but with music. That's mainly everything I have to say. Thank you and enjoy the performance.
This is the 5th piece of the song cycle La Courte Baillie. This piece revolves around the themes of loneliness and death. The piece is about a queen and her children who lived in a large palace together. However, the children died of an illness, so the queen fell into a moment of grief and despair, and eventually she herself passed on. In her death, she longed for the company of children. Thus, she began to sing her lullaby to attract and lure children into her palace so that she can put them to eternal slumber. Together, they lived as a family in spirit.
Like how Poulenc was known for his vocal pieces, Francesco Paolo Tosti was similarly well known for his wide-ranging vocal repertoire.
Tosti was a renowned Italian composer, well known not only for his compositional brilliance, but also for his teaching expertise. He composed many works featuring the voice and piano.
Tosti was born on the 9th of April 1846 in Ortona, Italy. Through the developments in the cereal trade between the United States and Europe, the cereal merchants experienced an increase in income. His family was able to gather the expenses to send Tosti to study the violin at the Paolini Brothers School from 1852 to 1858. After that, he began studying music at the Naples Conservatory. There, not only did he continue with the violin, but he also went on to study counterpoint, harmony, and composition.
Starting from 1870, he became a singing teacher and served in the court of the Princess of Savoy in Rome before migrating to England in 1876.
Oh, but why did he move? Didn't he really love Italy?
Back then, England, particularly London, was a popular destination for musicians. Moreover, Queen Victoria was passionate about the arts and music, which thus contributed to the liveliness of London's musical scene.
Oh, I see.
Tosti's reputation in England grew. He also helped to popularize bel canto singing, an operatic singing style. An example of the bel canto singing style is reflected through Tosti's song, Ideale, which was published in 1882.
Personally, for me, I chose this piece because I really enjoy the tranquil and calm mood behind it, which is created by the alternating triplets in the right hand of the piano accompaniment. Furthermore, it was also a joy to work with Regina, my junior, in this piece, as we were able to discuss the different interpretations of this piece and how we should express those interpretations through the dynamics.
Io ti seguì
Just before he started writing Ideale, Tosti began to collaborate with the poet Gabriele D'Annunzio in 1880. At the same time, he taught music at prestigious institutions such as the London Royal Academy. Tosti would also receive a contract by the publisher Belle, where he composed at least 4 romances a year.
Close to a decade later, Tosti composed La Serenata in 1888, which was a wildly popular piece of its time because of its charming vocal melody. Its lyrics are from a poem written by Giovanni Alfredo Cesario, which is a passionate and outspoken serenade about the speaker's love for his partner who is asleep.
Hi, I'm Medina.
And I'm Belle.
We really enjoyed performing this piece because of its light piano accompaniment and melodious legato line.
We hope the theme of love and affection was best conveyed through this serenade. I hope you enjoy.
Tra le
1889, Tosti eventually settled and married the singer Bertha Victoria Jean-Marie et Veru. Like what you mentioned, Tosti loved his homeland. Throughout all his success overseas, he returned often to Italy for visits and even had a house in Rome. As a sentimental man, Tosti did not ever fully settle down in England. But what? But in the 1890s, Tosti's visits to Italy became less frequent.
What happened?
This was because of his prominent position in English high society and its workload. Under publishers Belle and Époque, Tosti published some 40 romances. Moreover, Tosti became a music director and a singing teacher of the court of Queen Victoria.
Oh, that sounded like a lot of work.
In 1906, Tosti attained British citizenship, which caused controversy as some Italians criticized his lack of patriotism.
However, in newspapers and interviews, Tosti affirmed that he is still Italian at heart.
In 1907, Tosti composed Avocella, which translates to a sweet mouth. This piece is set to a libretto in the Neapolitan dialect written by D'Annunzio. With the playful libretto and Tosti's expertise in composing vocal music, this song is natural and graceful. The song's text compares the shape of a woman's mouth to a rose and illustrates the speaker's desire to kiss her.
Hi, I'm Yana.
Hi, I'm Sumin.
And we're performing Avocella by Francesco Paolo Tosti. In learning the piece, I think it was very eye-opening for us to listen to the different interpretations by performers in the past and trying to put our own unique presentation on the piece.
It was very enjoyable to work together because we had to learn how to coordinate with each other. All in all, it was a really memorable experience.
Yeah. Hope you enjoy.
He spent the summer of 1911 in Francavilla composing. By then, his reputation had become international, with Tosti having connections with various European royals.
The last few years of his life were spent in Francavilla, and Tosti gradually stopped composing. By the time of his death, Tosti had written over 70 compositions and over 350 songs in various languages.
Throughout his career, it seemed that Tosti was looking for ways to assert his Italian identity through his music. His vocal works were heavily influenced by the bel canto singing style, as well as the Neapolitan music and melodies. With his works as a singing teacher as accompanist, he also had an extremely good grasp on vocal techniques and limitations. His writing for accompaniment was also highly effective at conveying atmosphere or moods without overshadowing the singer.
La Belle Époque was undoubtedly regarded as one of the most important periods in history. It was an era of industrial development, technological advancements, changing social norms, and economic prosperity.
On a more musical note, it consisted of many influential composers whose musical ideas have continued to remain highly praised and relevant today.
We would like to thank the ISTITUTO Nazionale Tostiano for providing us with the opportunity to embark on this journey.
And thank you for joining us in this documentary, La Belle Époque.